Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us here today. Thank you, Ambassador. As you just heard, our delegation has been here for 3 days. The Prime Minister formed this delegation and gave us a mission for peace, to seek dialogue and diplomacy for more permanent peace in South Asia. We are very grateful for the US administration, for President Trump, for Secretary of State Rubio, who helped us achieve a ceasefire in the subcontinent following our 5 days of war between two nuclear armed countries. But we believe this ceasefire is the first step. And for durable peace in South Asia, we need to have a comprehensive dialogue with our neighbor India, where we address all our friction points. Indeed, when Pakistan agreed to the ceasefire, we did so on the condition that going forward, there would be a dialogue in a neutral location on all friction points. And we're very confident that that is the only way forward, and not only for Pakistan, but also for India. While we're very grateful for the ceasefire, we're cognizant of the fact that we are all, Pakistan and India, but our region and the globe by extension, a less safe place today than we were when this conflict started. The threshold for full-blown war between two nuclear armed powers has been drastically decreased. It's at a stage where it's never been before in our history. As things stand today, if there's a terrorist attack anywhere in India or Indian-occupied Kashmir, proof or no proof, that means war. That doesn't serve the interest of my country, and that certainly doesn't serve the interests of the people of India. The President of the United States' vision is clear. The President of the United States' policy is clear. He too would like peace. Pakistan would like peace. But it is evident from the statements of the Indian Prime Minister, from various officials in the Indian government, from their visiting delegation, that the Indian government is not interested in a dialogue. They are not interested in engaging on this topic with Pakistan. However, we are optimistic that just like the United States and other parties played a role in achieving our ceasefire, that as a result of our efforts that will continue on to other countries from tomorrow, we'll be able to all collectively prevail over India. The United States will be able to speak to India as a friend who has close relationship with them and convey to them, convince them that this is in the interest of our two countries. In any comprehensive dialogue with India, Pakistan would be ready to talk about terrorism. As far as the most recent attack that took place in Indian-occupied Kashmir, we know that we weren't involved. This assessment is endorsed by the US intelligence community, by other international intelligence organizations. But that doesn't mean that terrorism isn't a problem. It doesn't mean that India may not have complaints. Pakistan certainly has complaints. We've shared time and time again about India's support for terrorist organizations, particularly in Balochistan. Kulbhushan Yadav, a senior Indian army officer, was arrested from Balochistan. He's still in our custody. He was doing such activities. So as part of that comprehensive dialogue with India, when we talk terror, we'd like them to share any issues they have that we are to address. And we certainly have a laundry list of issues we would like them to address. As part of this comprehensive dialogue with India, we feel it's important for us to address the root cause of our conflict between India and Pakistan, and the root cause for terrorism, the real root cause for terrorism in occupied Kashmir. As long as India continues to ignore the issue of Kashmir, continue its policy of oppression and suppression in the valley, the reaction to that will be, unfortunately, that the domestic population will become the cannon fodder for terrorist organizations who want to conduct such attacks in the future. So that's why we feel it's important that we address the root cause of our problems. And in addition to that, you'll be aware, and you'll join me in condemning the Indian government's decision to weaponize water and cut off the water supply for 240 million people. We feel it's important that if we are to have a new dialogue with India, if we are to make new promises amongst each other, if we are to perhaps sign new treaties, then it's all the more important that we abide by our old treaties, so we have confidence in each other that the new agreements that we are to make are worth more than the paper that they are written on. I think I've covered all the aspects there. I want to leave maximum time for you to be able to ask questions of me or of anybody else on the panel here today. Thank you very much, everybody, and I hand it over to the ambassador to put up the, yeah, sure.
So please raise your hand, and when I request you to put your question, please introduce yourself and the media outlet that you belong to. That gentleman here, please go ahead, sir.
Hi, thank you. My name is Tom Watkins. Nice to see you. Thank you for doing this. One question that I've been asking myself is there's this very differing narrative between Pakistan and India in terms of the involvement the Trump administration played in negotiating the cessation of hostilities.
Sure.
And Pakistan has obviously been very forthcoming in thanking President Trump. He just did just now. India is taking a very different position, saying that
Sure.
there can be no mediation, and quite upset about the way things turned out. Can you perhaps shed any light on this discrepancy? Yeah.
Sure. I think that as we're sort of this conflict saw the excessive use of misinformation and disinformation. One thing that played to Pakistan's favor throughout this conflict is that we were transparent and we managed to maintain our credibility. We were transparent with the media, we were transparent with our public, and we were transparent with our allies. The events collaborate where we say, three people are making claims in this situation: Pakistan, the United States, and India. Two of us are saying one thing, one of them is saying something else. So I think it's sort of, you can try to figure out who's telling the truth. India employed disinformation not only during this conflict, they continue to employ disinformation as part of their delegation's tour. They lied to the international community and their own people about this terrorist attack. They were unable, to this day, they haven't shared either with the media, with their allies, or with Pakistan, who they fought a war with, who the terrorists were that were involved in this incident in Indian-occupied Kashmir. They have not been honest or forthcoming about the damages they sustained during this conflict. They still, to this day, refuse to admit how many airplanes they lost in this conflict. So I think in order to assess who is speaking more accurately, you can see who's had the same line consistently, whose views are being corroborated by the statements made not only from the presidency, but also from the State Department. Marco Rubio's tweet on the night of the ceasefire, after he spoke to all sides, includes three important points. Not only obviously reference to the immediate ceasefire, but also an indication about future conversations at a neutral territory covering all friction points. So, I mean, I guess that's the answer to my question. Pakistan prides itself on its transparency during this period. We're still sort of open to questions and probing on the facts. India has relied on disinformation throughout this conflict. Even during the war, the Indian media played the role of fake news and amplified some of this disinformation that originated from the Indian government. Thank you.
Yes, madam, please go ahead. Yeah.
Hi, I'm with the Associated Press.
Could you be a little louder, madam?
Sure. It's Ellen McMyer with the Associated Press. Thank you for doing that. The fact that the conflict is between two nuclear-armed countries concerns the world at large. Did someone in your meetings with the Americans, did they express you for a commitment of no first use? And would Pakistan agree to no first use? If not, why not?
No, Pakistan was not asked anything to do with nuclear questions, full stop, let alone no first use during this conflict. Pakistan did not have to rely on its nuclear arsenal or the threat of its use of its nuclear arsenal to establish military dominance during this conflict. As far as future obligations or future commitments, I think the important first step is to build on this ceasefire, work towards a comprehensive dialogue where we can address any and all issues in an environment of peace outside of these hostilities where our neighbor is threatening to cut off our water supply. They call the ceasefire a pause, not a ceasefire. They call the ceasefire a trailer and expect us to wait for the movie. Their prime minister is giving speeches where he says, I have a message for the youth of Pakistan, eat bread or eat my bullet. I think in that environment, perhaps that's not the most conducive to take revisions of come up with revisions of our policy. However, I believe if we start moving towards peace, then there will be lots of steps that both sides could take to ensure that our neighborhood is a safer place.
Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Brady Knox. I'm with the Washington Examiner. So here in the U.S., I would say there's a perception that the historical relationship between Pakistan and the United States is slowly withering away, that the United States is now trying to transition to a close relationship with India, and that in turn China is coming and taking Yusuf's place in Pakistan, and then that's adding a whole new dynamic. So as a delegation that came here to strengthen the relationship between Pakistan and the United States, how would you respond to that characterization?
Look, as far as vacuums being created, there's no doubt that once the US started to pay less attention to Pakistan, that creates a vacuum. Nature detests a vacuum, and other people take that space. I do believe that the United States is reconsidering its historic approach, or its approach in and around the fall of Kabul. We're talking trade, we're talking investment, we're talking minerals, we're talking crypto, we're talking tech, we're talking agriculture. So that's moving in a positive direction. I will say that India has pitched itself to the... Oh, no. Hello? Well, you can still hear me, and hopefully the mics can still hear me. I will say that India has pitched itself as a net security provider for the region, and American taxpayer dollars go into subsidizing the Indian economy and the Indian military-industrial complex in exchange for it supposedly providing this net security provider role. I believe this 5 days of conflict has exposed India. It is not a net security provider. It is a source for insecurity in South Asia, and as a result, insecurity in the region and the globe. They brought the threshold for military armed conflict between Pakistan incredibly low. They launched a war on the basis of a lie, and then they couldn't even win that war, and the US had to intervene and ask and facilitate a ceasefire. I believe the real net security provider, or the foundations for a real net security provider in South Asia, would be for peace to be established between India and Pakistan. That would provide the stability in the region that is so desperately required. If we're going to be in this zone where anywhere in India there's a terrorist attack, And that leads to a military conflict that could potentially lead to a nuclear conflict that could potentially draw in regional powers, global powers, other countries. That's an incredibly unstable situation. The trade talks that the US is having with India, the trade talks that the US is having to Pakistan, while there may be sort of big, beautiful trade deals in the pipeline, if we don't manage to come back to a semblance of stability, that'll be counterproductive for all of us.
Yes, on that table, there has been a flag raised. Yeah.
Hello, yes, my name is Nahal Tusi and I'm with Politico. Good to see you again, sir. Last time you promised me you'd give me your WhatsApp number and...
Oh, sorry if I missed on that. I'll do it now.
Yeah, you should definitely keep your word on that. I was curious about something. There's been so much talk for so long about the threat of Islamist militancy.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about Hindu extremism? And do you think that is an issue that the West, the United States in particular, needs to pay more attention to, or would paying more attention to it actually fuel it?
What a fantastic question. I clearly should have given you my number. I don't associate terrorism with any religion, with any culture, with any country. I believe terrorism has no borders, has no religion, and must be condemned across the board. It is politically convenient for terrorists. Sometimes they use the mask of one religion or another religion. Sometimes they use the mask of nationalism or separatism or something else. At the end of the day, we all need to take a uniform policy against non-state actors and terrorists. As far as extremism is as a topic, it's absolutely a bone of contention. It's a concern for us. We deal with extremisms of all forms, shapes, and sizes within Pakistan. Extremism in India is a new reality. And unfortunately, that Hindutva extremism that we're witnessing in India, that you can trace back to, however far back you want to. I often start with the Gujarat riots, but that's not actually sort of the source of this extremism. It's absolutely evident across Indian society. The word terrorism is used as a wolf whistle to demonize minorities, to demonize the Muslims in India, to demonize the Muslims in occupied Kashmir, and to demonize the Muslims in their neighborhood. I don't think that particularly, serves the purpose for the people of India. We've witnessed saffron terror in the past, terrorist attacks that have taken place in India, from the Samjhauta Express to the Gujarat riots and so on, have never gone punished. In fact, it was Modi himself and his government who forgave the gang rapists from the Gujarat riots. The people who were charged in the Samjhauta Express attacks were set free. So it's clearly a problem for the Indian government to also deal with. What's even more concerning is that the source of this Hindutva extremism is the RSS. And the RSS is a branch of the political party that's in power in India, the BJP. So it's within that context that the decisions in India are being taken. It's within that context that their foreign policy decisions are being taken. And I think that is a challenge for all of us. But regardless of all of this, our effort is to convince everyone that instead of finger pointing, instead of blaming one another and sort of getting caught in these vicious cycles, we need to get to a point where we're working together to combat terrorism. And as I said earlier, if India has any complaints, we want to address them, and we have a long list of complaints that we'd like India to address. Thank you. And sorry, next question.
Yes, here on this side.
Degrees from Reuters. Two quick questions. Firstly, on the question of trade, that's something the President himself brought up there with the delegation last week. Is that something that has come up in your meeting with lawmakers and others, and what's sort of been
sort of that, and then secondly, on water, and sort of India's threat for that, what do you see as a solution? What can you put for lawmakers here in the United States and in the United Nations, and what's been their response to that?
Sure, thank you. As far as trade is concerned, that was the conversation we were having before this crisis. It's a conversation we look forward to having now as well. The Commerce Secretary of Pakistan, Commerce Secretary, just checking. The Commerce Secretary of Pakistan will be leading a delegation here to the United States to talk trade with his counterparts. We're pretty optimistic about that. I think that sort of the way that these tariff decisions have been playing out for different countries have different contexts. For Pakistan, it's given us an opportunity because Pakistan and the United States don't spend that much time talking about trade. We talk about terror, we talk about Afghanistan, we talk about other things. That's what we've spent the last couple of decades of this relationship obsessing about. I think Mr. Trump's decision vis-a-vis these tariffs have forced us to have a comprehensive discussion about trade, and there's a lot of potential that I believe we can unlock as a result of that conversation. As far as water, as far as the Indus Water Treaty, everyone we have met, obviously at the United Nations, but even here in Washington, D.C., we're all unanimous in condemning this decision. Everybody is expressing to various degrees how they don't want this precedent to be set. I'm sure in their conversations with the Indian government and their representatives, this issue will be raised. I don't think that this is a position that the Indian government is going to be able to sustain for very long. It is not the moral high ground, it is the lowest of the low ground to try and maintain this position that you're going to cut off Pakistan's water. I do hope that the international community, above and beyond geopolitics or any kind of partisan politics, will speak in one voice in condemning this decision.
Yes, there.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to follow up on this treaty.
A little louder. A little louder.
Thank you very much. My name is Vincent. Just wanted to follow on the Indus Water Treaty. In your meetings with your American counterparts, did you give them a request? Did you request them to help you negotiate with India to help you solve this problem? This is first. Secondly, you did talk about your interpretation that India has not been forthright about their own policies. Could you confirm with us how much loss Pakistan suffered? How many jets were damaged?
Sure. First question was for the jet. Oh, yes. So as far as the water issue is concerned, and as far as discussions with the United States is concerned, we haven't asked for mediation on any of our issues. We have asked the United States to talk to India as a friend and convince them that we need to sit down and have a comprehensive dialogue encompassing all our issues. The United States representatives that we have met, be it at the United Nations or here at the State Department, obviously expressed concern about this decision and their desire to see this decision taken back. As far as the damage that Pakistan took, we did not lose a single jet in this conflict. We took down 6 Indian planes, but we had 20 Indian planes in our locked at the night of the initial attack. Because our armed forces showed restraint, they only targeted those planes that emptied their load on Pakistan and hit our civilian infrastructure and our civilians on that first night. As far as the damage as a result of the drones that fell within Pakistani territory, the missiles that were fired in Pakistan, the Pakistani government, the Pakistani armed forces have released a comprehensive report on that with pictures, with information, with everything. I'm happy to ask someone to share that with you.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yeah, it's from Agile Response. If you could share a little bit more about the tangibles with your meetings with the US officials here, it does seem as though there's a sense of heightened opportunity at this time as opposed to during the Biden era when it felt like Pakistan was somewhat shut out. Would you agree with that assessment? And second question was, in your reporting that did appear, Pakistan was named on these lists for partial or full travel bans. Obviously, it hasn't occurred. If you're able to share any insight into the negotiations or the dialogue that can happen, we appreciate it.
Thank you. As far as the Biden administration is concerned, at the tail end, I was foreign minister of Pakistan, and I certainly didn't feel shut out from the Biden administration. I believe Pakistan made important progress during those days. Obviously, there was a different context. This crisis has afforded another opportunity for us to talk peace, particularly given the role that the United States president has played. We're definitely leaning in on that. As far as Pakistan being on this list, I think given the progress that Pakistan has made by and large combating terror, the cooperation we have in the CT domain with the United States, I mean, if you recall, when the US president made his first speech, the second time round he became president, the joint sessions of Congress, there was one country that he thanked for their cooperation on CT, and it was Pakistan. So I think whatever metric they were using, and FATF, we went through a long, arduous process along with the United States.